You know how they always say the truth always comes out and that God's justice never fails? Well, wait till you hear this creepy story that happened in Basra. A woman was found dead and her house was robbed, yet no one even realized she was gone for 7 whole days. And guess what? There were no human witnesses yet somehow. The killer was identified because this time the witness was from another world. Only God knows. You won't really get what happened until you watch till the end, but I promise you won't regret it. This is not something you've heard before. Drop us a like and leave a nice comment, and let's get into today's episode. Peace be upon you, I'm Ali Ahmed, and today is a Stories from Followers episode. So if you've got a crazy story to share, DM it to me on Insta, handles on screen. Oh, and before we start, sorry guys, I couldn't upload last week. I was sick. I'm actually still sick, but I had to record this before Ramadan starts. Ramadan Mubarak in advance, and may your fasting be accepted. This episode will probably go live during Ramadan. So Ramadan Mubarak, and sorry if I go quiet sometimes. I only skip when something serious comes up. Just know that I've got some really powerful stories coming your way soon. Our first story comes from Shams, a woman from Basra, Iraq. In 2022, I traveled to another country to attend a training program on some new medical devices. Our group was made up of 4 women, all from the same hospital and the same specialty. We were sent to that country, I won't mention its name, to learn how to use new devices. Everything was fine, and there were no problems at all. The real problem wasn't there, but in my own home. I live with my mother, and my father died a long time ago. My relatives tried to exploit the situation by claiming his possessions. They took his car, a large piece of land, a whole house, and even some money that rightfully belonged to my mother and me. So we ended up cutting ties. No relatives, no friends. And I'm not married, so I finished my studies and I'm now a doctor working at a hospital in Basra. Then I got chosen for a training trip, which meant leaving my mother alone at home. That was tough. I had never been apart from her like that. I reassured myself, saying, "It's only 7 days. It'll be fine." I traveled, and I was texting her every day, but something wasn't right. Her replies were super dry, barely said anything, and she kept avoiding voice calls. When I asked what's wrong, she'd either ignore me or not even open the message. Then on day 6, she just vanished from WhatsApp. My messages didn't even deliver. I was freaking out, but I tried to keep it together. Just one more day and I'd be back. But what happened next? You won't believe it. I got back on day 7, went straight home, and the second I stepped into the entrance hallway right past the outer door, I got hit with this insanely strong and awful smell. It was so overwhelming that I felt lightheaded and nearly fainted. I didn't need to think twice. It was painfully clear that my mother, may God have mercy on her, had died inside that house. The smell alone was unmistakable, the haunting stench of a dead body. I guess. I immediately called my team leader and the emergency medics, my coworkers actually, who rushed to the scene without delay. At that point, I had no idea what really happened or what I was about to see. But my heart, it was heavy, like deep down, I already knew. We entered the house wearing medical masks, and there she was, my mother, lifeless on the floor. But even that wasn't the most shocking part. The house was completely empty. No furniture, no car, not a single item left behind. Even the fridge and the food inside it was stolen with all its contents. Whoever looted the place had taken everything and left my mother's body behind, already dead, regardless of how she looked or any other details. We rushed her to the hospital for an autopsy, hoping at least to find out what caused her death. There was a court case, robbery, murder, but no leads, no results. The cause of death was strangulation. What hit me hard is that it all happened just hours after I left the country. Whoever did this knew I was gone. They had the time and freedom to take everything and kill my mother. Although justice was never served, but I still thank God for everything. Now, what's strange about the story? Listen closely because this is where it all began. I had to toughen up and face everything alone. Days passed. I continued living in the same house, bought new furniture, and even hired a guard to protect me and watch over the house while I was away. But the fire inside me never went out, and I never felt at ease. I always felt like I was being watched inside my own home. More than once, I'd hear sounds like glass shattering or footsteps, but no one was there. Again and again it happened, but I kept telling myself it's just the loneliness messing with my head. So one day I was getting ready for work. I had to cover a night shift at the hospital, orders from upstairs. While changing my clothes, I glanced at the mirror in my room. I was busy putting on my uniform and trying to ignore what I was seeing. What was I seeing? I saw myself in the mirror, but my reflection didn't move in sync with me, as if it was trying to imitate me, but not quite matching. And I was fully conscious and aware of what I was seeing. It was like I was seeing something out of the corner of my eye, but still clearly. Fear gripped me. I started to shake and rushed to get out of the room, but my reflection stayed with me, moving oddly, looking at me in a way that wasn't mine. I swear, there were moments when I moved in real life, but the reflection just didn't follow. That's the nightmare I tried so hard to pretend it wasn't real. I went to work on time, scared out of my mind. But I tried to come up with any logical excuse. Maybe I was just tired, sleepy, overworked, whatever. And maybe I was right, even though I was sure I had no reason to imagine something like that. What convinced me even more was that the same thing happened over 5 times in 5 consecutive days. So I finally said, no way, I'm not making this up, I need to prove it. I stood in front of the mirror and started moving my hands and head. At first, everything looked normal. My reflection moved just like me. But then, when I turned my head to the right, the reflection in the mirror literally turned left. My eyes widened, I stepped back in shock and ran away. I was completely sure this time, there's something strange behind that mirror. And here's the thing, that mirror is the only thing in the house that wasn't stolen. Because it's built into the wall, it's impossible to move it or take it without breaking it. Ever since that day, I began to dream of my mother every night, scolding me, weeping with anguish. Yet I could neither speak to her nor reach out. Then, one night, I awoke in the middle of that same dream, overwhelmed with sorrow, sobbing uncontrollably. I found myself crying out, "Mother, what do you want from me? Why do you visit me every night? I can't bear it any longer. Why do you blame me?" My tears were so heavy they clouded my vision. In that moment, I felt a hand rest on my right shoulder. It felt like someone was standing behind me. I tried to wipe away my tears to see who it was, but I couldn't. It was terrifying because it's not easy to feel someone's presence in your house when you live alone. Imagine being home alone and suddenly you feel a hand on your shoulder, despite being completely certain that no one else is there. I tried to see who it was, but everything around me was just a blur. My instincts screamed, "Run! Escape!" But I couldn't move. I couldn't even look back. Then, out of all the haze and fear, my gaze locked onto the room's mirror. Unlike everything else, it was crystal clear. The fog clouded all else, but not the mirror. I saw her, a girl standing behind me, staring at me. But she didn't look scary. She actually looked calm, normal. And somehow, that eased my panic. Everything remained blurry, except the mirror and that reflection. She was sitting almost directly behind me, with both her hands gently placed on my shoulders. I asked her, "Who are you?" I was certain I was dreaming, but I swear, the reflection in the mirror shifted. I saw someone I knew walking calmly inside the house. What the mirror showed was like a surveillance camera capturing a fixed angle directly opposite the mirror. It was as if the mirror was revealing only what it sees, nothing more. Through it, I saw a robbery unfold. I even saw him murder my poor mother. Then he emptied the house of every piece of furniture. All these events played before my eyes as fragmented, surreal scenes reflected through the mirror. But who was that person? He was the driver who used to take me daily from home to the hospital. It was a blow beyond comprehension, a devastating shock. This man had always seemed like an angel in his behavior and honesty, but even now, I'm not sure he actually did it. At that moment, I felt like I was dreaming. Or maybe it wasn't a dream at all. The moment the vision through the mirror ended, I was wide awake. The girl who had her hand on my shoulder pulled away and disappeared. I was completely awake. I know I wasn't asleep. It wasn't a dream. To verify what I had seen, I contacted my friend, a highly respected and brilliant lawyer, the ideal person to ask for advice. I told her everything, including the vision or dream that I saw in the mirror. I still don't know whether it was real or just in my mind. She came up with a smart, super detailed plan to figure out if the driver was actually behind the theft and murder. First, we filed a case against him, working with the police who were already investigating the crime. He was arrested, and the lawyer approached him pretending to be a detective. He denied everything until the plan began to unfold. She told him that across from the house he robbed, there was another house with 2 security cameras. You were caught crystal clear, stealing and murdering the old lady. She then revealed the same eerie details that Shams had seen in her dream, like how the crime was committed, the stolen gold, and other details that only someone who had witnessed the crime could possibly know. The driver became visibly nervous, almost convinced there was real evidence against him. "Prove it," he demanded. The lawyer replied, "Do you see anyone else here?" "We brought you in because we're sure, and we have enough evidence in just a few days. You'll be on trial and face justice." The man panicked, so the lawyer added, "Your only chance to reduce your sentence is to confess and do a crime scene reenactment for the police. You're still young." She was an old woman. "We can frame the charge in a way that carries a lighter sentence, so you can serve your time and eventually go free, so you don't rot in prison forever." It didn't take long for the driver to crack. Her tone, her confidence, and her evidence left no room for doubt. He was convinced he'd been exposed. And he didn't just confess. He dragged 3 of his friends who helped him out. But the mystery deepens. What happened to Shams? How did she see her mother's killer in the mirror? And who was the mysterious girl who touched Shams on the shoulder that day? So many questions and 1,000 possible explanations. So tell us, my friend, what's yours? Let's move on to the next story. The second story comes from Hafizeh, a 45-year-old woman from Egypt. She's from a village called Al-Zawaida, formerly known as Al-Balas, and also commonly referred to as Al-Mahrosa. Hafizeh says that Al-Zawaida is one of the old rural villages in Egypt, known for its traditional countryside lifestyle. People in the village wake up at 6 a.m. The farmers head to the fields, while others go to their jobs or run their shops. It's a calm and beautiful rural life. But this story happened many years ago, back when I was around 20 years old or maybe younger. At that time, there was a large room on the outskirts of the fields, surrounded by a fence. Inside that room were ovens that ran on firewood, and there was also a large amount of wood stored there. The place was used as a local bakery. Anyone in the village who needed to bake bread would come there and bake for free, and even the firewood was gathered collectively by the farmers. Our family was huge, like 7 families living next to each other, all under one big roof. So naturally, we needed a lot of bread every day. That's why 5 girls would get up at 5 a.m. before sunrise and go bake a large quantity of bread. One of our aunts would always come with us. But one day, that very aunt, the one who always lit the fire and helped us bake, fell gravely ill. She could barely breathe and wasn't able to come to light the fire. Still, she kept insisting, recite Ayat al-Kursi and al-Fatiha before lighting the fire. She kept warning us over and over about that specific point. We didn't think much of it and went anyway, just like always, to the baking room at the far end of the village. Everything seemed fine. One of my older cousins lit the oven. Suddenly, the flame shot up fiercely, out so strong that we instinctively stepped back. It was strange. The fire was never usually that intense. That's when we heard it, a sound that filled our hearts with fear. It was the loud, desperate cry of a baby, or a small child is crying as if in pain. The sound was so loud it shocked us, but what terrified us more was the fact that in that place, at that hour, no one should have been out walking through the fields, let alone a baby. Strangely enough, the voice seemed to be coming from inside the oven. We thought maybe one of the village kids had crawled in there. Perhaps he was playing and fell asleep inside by mistake. But we checked the oven before lighting it, and it was completely empty. The questions kept piling up, and things just got weirder. The fire was blazing, yet the voice continued. The same girl who had lit the oven went to look inside, despite the intense flames. But the moment she got closer, the fire suddenly flared up as if it had leapt at my cousin. The sight froze us in place. We were paralyzed with shock as we watched the flames move and wrap around her. Once we realized what was happening, we rushed to help her, but we couldn't do anything. Should we leave her to burn? No way! I quickly wrapped my scarf around her leg and we dragged her to a nearby room just a few meters away. It had a water pump connected to the Nile, feeding a small stream that ran through the village orchards. We threw her, still engulfed in flames, into the water. The moment she hit it, she lost consciousness. We ran toward the house, terrified, carrying our cousin, not knowing if she was dead or just unconscious. We were screaming loudly, hoping someone in the family would come help us. It was a moment only God truly knows the weight of. Thank God our cousin was still alive. They asked what had happened, and we told them exactly what we saw. There's one detail I haven't told you yet. When the fire jumped on our cousin, what we saw was literally a flame in the shape of a small boy leaping onto her as if it hugged her, and then she burst completely into flames. When we told her family what we saw, no one believed us. It just didn't make any logical sense. How could a small boy come out of an oven filled with fire, jump on someone, and set them ablaze? And honestly, when you think about it like that, it does sound impossible. But who said it was a human boy? Our aunt, the one who always lit the oven, interrupted us. She asked, "Did you recite Ayat al-Kursi and al-Fatiha like I told you?" We told her, "No, we forgot." She left us, went to her room, and came back with some bread and salt. "Where are you going?" we asked. "To the oven room," she said. We didn't understand what was going on, but we waited for her to come back. When she did, she sat down to rest. We all asked her what that was about, and she explained, "For many years, I've been the one to light the fire in the mornings. Because of how early it is, I'm always the first one to use the oven. When I got sick, I told the girls to recite Ayat al-Kursi and al-Fatiha before lighting the fire. That's because there could be someone, not human, but a jinn, sleeping inside the oven and they could get hurt. It's well known that jinn tend to inhabit such places, especially remote or abandoned ones. So I threw salt and bread into the fire and recited some Quranic verses near the oven, hoping they don't harm that girl again, just as she harmed them by lighting the fire without any recitation. Reading these verses acts as a warning to any jinn present so they can leave without being harmed. What you just heard isn't some fantasy or fairy tale. This is actually something well known, especially among the elders. In the past, when people used to light fires in ovens located in deserted areas, they would first recite verses from the Quran and mention the name of God, just like how people do before pouring hot water in bathrooms to avoid harming jinn. But the strange part of this story is that when my cousin regained consciousness, she swore that a small boy appeared, grabbed her, and pulled her into the oven. All she could remember was fire everywhere, and although she did wake up that same day, a fire broke out in the house for no apparent reason. Everyone ran for safety, but they suddenly remembered that my cousin was still inside her room, unable to escape. They tried to help her, but the fire was unusually intense. Sadly, she died, not because of the flames, but from the smoke. Everyone mourned her death at the time, but the bigger tragedy was what came afterward. Ever since that day, no one has been able to use the oven or that entire room for that matter. No one knows why. Anyone who enters to bake bread finds the fire flaring up uncontrollably, burning both the wood and the dough. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that not a single loaf of bread has been successfully baked in that room since that day. The only explanation we had was that my cousin must have burned one of the jinn babies back then, and God knows best. Yeah, they're made of fire, sure. But there are things that can hurt them just like things hurt us, my friend. If you watched this episode and still didn't check out the rest of the channel, what are you waiting for? Don't just sit there. Go to the channel, hit that subscribe button, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next episodes. And follow me on Instagram to catch a glimpse of my life beyond YouTube. I'm Ali Ahmed. Stay safe and peace out. They came home right away. Hold on, where's the other phone? Oh, look, I swear every time I start recording all these ads, messages start flooding in. And even though I don't want my phone to vibrate, it suddenly does, just to remind me it's still alive. You know, these kinds of things. Anyway, let's continue. God willing, all's good. I actually turned off the internet. I was supposed to turn it off. You know why? Because if I don't, I'll get one of those annoying messages telling me your internet quota has been fully consumed. Those annoying messages. Let's continue before the meds wear off and I get sick again. I have to keep going. There's this case at the hospital. Something about theft or murder or hold on, a case. A case at the hospital. I really need a cup of hot tea? Honestly, this one stays hot. Don't let its appearance fool you, but it's okay. It's working. See, it's steaming. Listen, a call to prayer. Hold on, though I've finished half the story, or almost the first story, and my face has turned red because, when you're sick with the flu, that's what happens to your face when you film for an hour-long episode, or God knows how long. Though honestly, it'll probably end up being only 18 to 20 minutes. I think I'm talking fast, so I don't choke or something. Anyway, I hope this episode goes smoothly, because I'll upload it soon. Today's Wednesday, and you'll notice I always end up filming on Wednesdays or Thursdays. I post on Instagram too. If you're not following me yet, come on, go follow me.